Hi, everyone. Welcome to a very important episode of Our Bipolar Voices. I'm Jess Curtis. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, just a little bit about me. I have bipolar 1, and I was diagnosed 27 years ago when I was a sophomore in college. And today I have Lee Formella with us. So excited to have him here. But before we get into the conversation, I will ask you to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, like this video, hype this video, and comment. Please leave comments, and Lee and I will respond to them. So, Lee, I'm so glad to have you. We've been, friends on Instagram for a long time, and I know you also have a YouTube channel. I think both accounts are called Benefits of Bipolar,
Yep,
and
yep.
I'll put the links down in the description box. But why don't we start out with you just telling us a little bit about yourself?
I was actually diagnosed with bipolar 2, generalized anxiety, and PTSD back in 2019. So I got a much later diagnosis, and it's only been about 6 years for me. Outside of that, which is very important, the rest of our lives are also extremely important. I really am lucky enough to live close to my sister and my two nephews, so I spend a lot of time with them. And when I get a little other break, I try and travel to go see my parents and my brother and his wife and my two nieces and nephew over there. So, that and got to coach a little basketball this year, got back into that. So, and then outside of that, I love running, love getting outside, except for in these beautiful, snowy, awfully cold winter days that we're experiencing here in Minnesota, which is another key point. I just moved in September actually to the Twin Cities here in Minnesota. So much change over the last year, but as I think we all kind of experience as we go through this, is that it gets a little bit easier to navigate every single time. So, I appreciate you having me on, and I'll kind of stop there for now.
Thank you. And we need to really talk about, people dealing with bipolar like we are. And right now, this is an extremely heavy time in our country. And let's sort of get into that and what's going on. And, you being a resident of the Twin Cities, I'm going to pause just for a second. This is a very sensitive topic. Please take care of yourself, even if that means not watching this video, and we will do our best to be thoughtful in how we speak on this today. I'm going to give some background on just what's going on, just so we're all on the same page. So, starting in December 2025, a large-scale immigration enforcement operation was launched in Minneapolis, St. Paul metropolitan area. Agents from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE, were deployed, sparking protests. Renee Nicole Good was fatally shot by an ICE agent on January 7th during a protest. Federal authorities continued with the operation amid public outcry. Protests persisted. Alex Pretti was killed by an ICE agent on January 24th during a protest. According to my research, as of this filming, and today is February 1st, a total of 9 people, and you'll see them on the screen, have either been killed by ICE agents or died while in ICE custody. This is information I found from news sources. Do your own research on the topic. So, first, I just wanted to ask you kind of what you're seeing, just being a resident of the Twin Cities, what you're experiencing kind of on a daily basis throughout kind of this whole month of January.
Yeah, I mean, let me first, kind of address the fact that in these instances, people that look like us are extremely privileged. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Beyond privileged, because on a day-to-day basis, if I didn't want it to, it really wouldn't have to affect me. I live in actually a very quiet part of St. Paul. It's on right off of a main thoroughfare, but it's in an area that's a little bit more secluded than the rest of it. So I think, from that side of things, very lucky. That being said, I would say the whole city's two things can be true at once, is one of the things I always like to say. The whole city's on edge. It is constantly, you're constantly aware of it. Every time you talk to somebody, right? The simple question of how are you is loaded right now, even more than it already is. I think most people that I come in contact with will bring it up, or say, doing well, all things considered, under the circumstances, which is normal for us any given day, but especially what's going on right now. I think the most noticeable thing for me and the hardest thing to see is people that don't look like me aren't leaving the house. One of the things I really enjoyed about moving up here was seeing the vast diversity of people in stores, at Starbucks, at, the restaurant that I work, wherever you go. That's part of the reason you move to a big city is diversity of thought, culture, learning from other people, just seeing, knowing you're not alone. The whole world isn't the same. It's not homogenous, right? We are all different. There are so many things that so many people bring, and you don't see as many people there, right? Because understandably, they're terrified to leave the house. And that is something we're seeing constantly. And that is hard, I think, for the entire city to understand and to process. On the other side of it, though, the rallying around everybody that you've seen from everybody in the city is phenomenal. I've been
Mhm.
saying for a lot of people, this might have caused them to be like, oh my God, why did I move here? Everything that's happened has caused me to go, I'm so happy I moved here. It's such a welcoming, caring, thoughtful community just as a whole. And so, I looked, I know we'll get into at some point what other people can do, but the first two places I looked into volunteering at weren't even accepting applications anymore because so many people had reached out to volunteer. You really see both sides of it. You're seeing the best of society really contradicted with, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to, the worst of society and the worst of what we're seeing in society right now. Because in my opinion, what we're seeing is people being attacked for being good, for caring about other people, for having the social systems in place so that people can afford to live, get the health insurance they need, have the mental health care, hopefully around that they need. And in a lot of reason for a lot of I think that's why we are being attacked because we are or I can't say we I just moved here I can take no credit but the cities the communities the people that have lived here for so long have really built such a caring wonderful community and I think for people who you know people might get jealous of that but it just to get back to it for the especially for people who don't look like us if you don't have a skin color that looks like ours if you don't sound like us I just really it's a terrifying time. It is a time where leaving the house, you're putting yourself at risk. I mean, and it has a bigger effect, all around. I have a great friend of mine who wanted to come to the United States to study, and she's not going to anymore. She was going to come for a residency. That's the level of fear even from outside the country. Imagine what it is on a day-to-day basis for those living in it, fearful that they're going to be picked up, kidnapped, taken somewhere they don't know. Maybe their kids are, and so when we're seeing that on a day-to-day basis, it's just you can't escape. I was having that conversation. It's when you wake up, you're thinking about it. When you go for a walk, when you go for a drive, when you hear, for me, when I hear sirens, I'm like, is it an ambulance or is it four cars in a row?
Right.
It's kind of everywhere.
Wow. I mean, you're really putting it into perspective because I know, I live in Pittsburgh. We're not experiencing what you are, but I do know it feels definitely there's that heaviness and people are sad and feeling helpless. And when I talk to people, they are kind of what you're saying, expressing like, how are you doing? Like, definitely pointing out what's happening in our country. And that didn't really happen in the past, but at the same time, we're not being directly affected,
Yeah.
at least not yet. And like you said, we're extremely privileged, but I'm thinking back to like when I moved to Washington, D.C., and I moved to this very diverse area and I loved it. I loved like experiencing that and meeting so many people who, were very different from me. They were from different places and they had different cultures sometimes. And it was wonderful. It was an experience I would never give up. And I just like the thought of, going out each day and not seeing those people, even though you hear about it. Like we hear about this happening, like people are afraid to leave their homes for very good reason, but just the thought of it in everyday life, I hadn't really somehow, it hadn't clicked.
Yeah, what really brings it home is think about the people and you don't have a lot of people compare to things that happened in other countries in the past.
Yeah.
We don't have to do that.
Yeah.
We had slave catchers, right? So we've had people who had to hide, who had to, who couldn't leave their houses, things like that. We interned a whole race of people during World War II. Go back and look at, what this country did to the Chinese population during the railroad rush. And then, of course, you go all the way back to the indigenous population, right?
Yeah.
So this isn't the first time, but what we're seeing it and what I'm happy about is we have video, which is makes two things true. It's harder for them to get away with it, but it's also harder on all of us. We're seeing it constantly, and we actually have to make the cognizant decision not to see it. Every time you open up Instagram, you go on YouTube, you turn on the TV, you're going to see something, right? You almost have to make a conscious decision to turn on whatever video service platform or, get directly to whatever you want to do or go for a walk and somehow disconnect because it is a different time now that we live in, and we're all going to see it, the whole, everything that's going on, pretty much at all times.
Yeah, that's so true. And because I don't know about you, but I do try to not take in too much news uh as much as possible, but right now it's everywhere. It's not a matter of like, oh, I'm not going to follow this news, source. It's everywhere. So we do have to figure out how to protect ourselves at the same time while also maybe you want to be informed, right?
Well, especially living here,
I can't imagine.
you want to
Yeah.
know which neighborhood, right? Is it somebody that I knew, right? Or is it somebody's family member? I mean, even if I don't know anybody directly, right? Yeah, and I do, but let's say I didn't, it's people's wives. It's their families, right? Even if somebody looks like me, but they have a wife who's, from Mexico, Ecuador, Venezuela, pick a, any other country, truly any other country right now. Um, they have to figure out how to make up for, do they go to work? Do they send their kids to school? Who brings the kids to school? Can they go to work? Can that partner go to work? And if not, how
Or
do we
like,
replace that?
are the
Income.
kids going to be taken from the school if they
Exactly. How do you
go?
pay rent? How do you get food if you can't leave the house? I mean that, and that's where the community has really done a great job filling in. But as optimistic as I want to be about that, we shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't
No,
have to do that for our
they
neighbor.
shouldn't have to feel
People we
that
know.
way.
Right.
And so, well, I think you've already touched on this, but like, how do you feel about what's happening and like how is what everything that's happening, you have bipolar 2. So how is that affecting you with your mental illness?
It's kind of hard to tell. I don't know about you. Sometimes I've undergone so much change over the last year that I'm not entirely sure what my baseline is right now. And it all led into this. I think the biggest thing for me, as always, is trying to sleep. Because it has affected that even more than my sleep is already affected. Because again, when I just think back to this past last weekend, not this night, yesterday and today, obviously, but last weekend, I worked 21 hours in 2 days, right at the restaurant. That was the morning, Saturday morning was the morning Alex got killed by ICE
Right.
agents. So I had an event for a nonprofit in the morning and I went straight to work. So I found out at the event from the nonprofit, had 20 minutes to kind of breathe, soak it in, and then go to work, smile and make sure that I was making other people's day better, right? So when I got home at 11:30 is when I started to process. So I don't know that I went to sleep until 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I had to work again at 11 the next day, right? And so that is going to affect me greatly. I don't know how much more it's affecting me than the general public right now, which is why I've almost been hesitant, but this is the place to do it. And that's hard. And kind of what I said at the beginning, when it's constant, when you're constantly on edge, when you're constantly hearing things, even if I don't engage on Instagram, right? And don't
Mhm.
leave the house. I live by the airport. There's still helicopters going around, right? That's something that they've brought in. So you literally can't completely disconnect at any time. And for somebody that lives with bipolar, that, like us, that disconnection is vitally important. Taking care of ourselves, and I always say unselfishly putting yourself first is vitally important. And when we're constantly worried about other people, watching what's going on, wondering how we can help others, the first thing to go is usually how we take care of ourselves. The first thing to go is usually our self-care, those things that are best for us. And what we don't often realize is by doing those things, it actually gives more of ourselves to be available to do those other things to help others. To get to that point where we might be able to volunteer, to get to that point where we might be able to go out. I know we talked about this before, and will get there, go to protest, whatever we want to do. But I will say I have been limited in what I've been able to do. And I think part of that is because of how overwhelming the whole situation has been, for somebody
Right.
like us. I think it is important to not compare, but to keep in mind other people just have more capacity to begin with. And as I've always said, I can't compare myself to them. And I think everything that we have people like them. Because if we didn't have the
Yeah.
neurotypical people or the people who had a different mental illness that allows them to have more energy, right? We wouldn't have the
Mhm.
protests. But I think it's important for us to remember like what to try and figure out what's best for us to begin with to keep us healthy, not in a selfish way, right? And then what can we do then if we have the energy and the ability to do so? But especially because in all reality, if you don't take care of yourself first, especially with a serious mental illness, and all you do is force yourself, to go out and take care of others, there's going to be an end line, and that end line might be a hospital. That end line might be bed for a week. That end line, we don't know, right? We have a lot of end lines that we don't know where they could be. And so that's not doing anybody any good. It's not doing yourself
Right.
any good,
Like,
the community
eh,
any good, anybody.
no. And your reaction is totally valid. Like, when you found out about Alex Pretti, you had trouble sleeping. I would argue that anyone, neurotypical would have that same reaction, but it
Totally.
doesn't affect them in the way it affects us, where it can bring on the bipolar symptoms for us. And then we can't really even function. We
Right.
can't do anything to try to take action or give back. And I know a lot of us are feeling really helpless, especially people who are living outside of the area, because we're just like, what can we do? What should we do? And like, should I push myself? Am I stable enough to go to a protest? Should I not do that? I mean, what does that look like? And for those of us who haven't attended a protest, we don't really, it's like such an unknown that
Hmm.
I think we feel kind of paralyzed at times, like, and like how to take action. I know you were saying like you've needed to sort of take care of yourself first and foremost. I totally agree. And so, like, kind of, do you have like plans on what you would like to be able to do, or are you just sort of like figuring that out still? I mean, I know you want to be able to take action of some sort.
First of all, I'll send people to my Instagram. The first two links on my link tree are to two local places where they can donate. Pretty much anything. One of them is right across the street from my house, actually. And they're a little bit more limited in what they give away, but it's massive help because they do give away culturally responsive foods right now, or culturally relevant foods right now, which is extremely important,
Yeah,
right?
that's
People
amazing.
want to eat what they have been used to eating. If you've been used to eating your food, the food that you love, and then all of a sudden you're forced to eat ham and cheese sandwiches for a month, that's going to make you very depressed, right? We want people to be able to continue their lifestyle as much as they were, without being able to leave the house and being constantly terrified. So those are the first two things I would tell people. And if you can't donate, that's okay. Share those out. Share that with a rich grandma, with a friend, with your email list at work. If you have a following on Instagram, right? I was able to make a couple videos, one that got quite a few views or, quite a bit of traction on Instagram, just about how much the Twin Cities have been welcoming to me. And even though I could very easily dismiss those two actions, right, as not being enough, I wanted to do more. At the end of the day, that's still 50 plus thousand people that saw how much the Twin Cities welcomed me in, and that the only thing that has ever made me feel unsafe since I've moved here in the last 5 months is ICE. Like the only thing. I have felt safer here than anywhere else. You know what I mean? And so that being said, I do want to do more, and it has weighed on me. And I love that you said the paralyzed, being unable to make a decision or figure out what to do. That's where I was. I mean, it's very easy with PTSD and anxiety. Like, I'll be honest, going to a protest would be very difficult on many levels.
Mhm.
First, you have the logistics of it, which are difficult for me, and I don't want to speak for anybody else who lives with a mental illness, but that's a lot of, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot to figure out. Parking, can I get out if I need to get out? Am I stuck if I'm stuck? Do I have enough food to get me through? Water, right? I mean, there's things because otherwise, it wouldn't be good, right? You don't want to be a distraction either. I don't want to take away from the protest, take away from what's important there. A big thing for me is I had 20 years of being undiagnosed with bipolar. Let's just say I had a few police interactions. They weren't always good. A couple of them were, most of them weren't. The idea of being approached by a line or a group or whoever of agents in masks, I don't know how I would respond.
And
I
also,
really
based on what has already happened, there has to be like a natural level of fear involved in
I think
attending
for
these protests,
I think for anyone,
just for
for
anyone.
anyone, and then you add a layer of past trauma with law enforcement. And I have great friends who are law enforcement now. I've spoken to them multiple times. So for the most part, I'm pretty good. But on that level, so it seemed like it was too much for me, and that was hard. That is hard. I don't like that. I can't change it. I have to accept it. But I wanted to be out there. I wanted to be out there with all of the other residents, and I had to forgive myself and come to and that was the day I made the first video. And then, the day of the second protest is when I made a second video and found those places where I might be able to go volunteer, but other people, who are on following me on Instagram would be able to donate and share those with other people. It's really important for me, but for all of us to remember, we can only do what we can do. And, but, and either way, if you want to do more, do more. It's kind of what I say about everything, right? If you want to be a runner, walk tomorrow. Start small, start with something. Literally share out a video. I think one of the most important things people can do in other areas is share out the real videos. I'm never one to tell people to share out opinions. That's up to them, but if you see a real factual video evidence, that's important to share out right now. To share out what's actually happening on the ground and not what people are saying. Because people on every side are saying things that aren't accurate right now. It's not a city that's in peril, being burned down. It's people being attacked, people being targeted, of a certain color. And so, sharing out information, sharing out those resources, anything will make you feel a little better, and anything helps. I think those two things are the most important. Anything, and true of anything you want to do, but especially right now, if you think something you want to do something, however small, right? Because it all helps. And don't compare yourself and, just keep going. you
I
know.
think that's a really good point. I've had friends attending protests, not just right now, but, for I guess over the past year or so. And I've always felt kind of bad that I knew I just couldn't attend, or I
Mhm.
wasn't in a place where I could attend. I wasn't stable enough. And even if I was, I wasn't sure that would really matter. And, I have a lot of responsibilities and I can't just like go and do whatever I want and then have mania or depression. And even, I mean, after Alex died, most people felt extremely sad, very down, and I felt that pretty heavily for like a few days. And then of course I'm still feeling it, but it was like acute for a few
Yeah,
days. And I was feeling to the point where like, am I going to go into depression?
yeah.
Because it was, sadness is different, of course, but I was starting to feel like it could happen. And I was like, I have to get myself out of this. Like I can be aware and I can be like responsible and trying to give back and trying to take action. And I can also keep living my life, keep
Hmm.
enjoying things in my life at the same
We have to.
time. We have to do that. It's been hard. And I know another thing that I've done, which I don't think you mentioned, was, people are calling their Congress,
Thank
they're
you.
calling Congress, they're sending
Appreciate
emails.
that.
Personally, I felt really uncomfortable making phone calls and
Hmm.
like talking to someone and just, I'm not good with phone calls anyway. Like,
Yes,
even
it's
like ordering
understandable.
pizza, I don't want to make the phone call. But I have been sending emails, and I'm not sure if they're weighted the same as phone calls, but I have been emailing, and it felt like a small thing, but I was like, I'm doing something. I feel like I'm doing something.
Thank you for bringing that up. I had it in my head, but as you know, those things fleet away. I think right now it's more important than ever because, and I think I'm glad you brought it up because people outside of Minnesota, it's especially more important than ever. We need congressmen and members of the House right now to make decisions. And they're very important decisions. You know what I mean? For our
Mhm.
future and how we're going to run this country. And so it's pretty clear, I think, how Minnesota, not all, but a majority of Minnesota politicians feel right now and where it's probably going to go, which is a positive thing. That being said, I think what we've talked about is it can be very easy for parts of the other part of the country to kind of go, okay, that's going on. It must be bad. I feel bad, right? And then move on. And that's not an accusation. That is normal. That's understandable. That's how life works. Take that extra minute, send those emails, make those calls, make sure people they know this isn't okay, especially if it's bothering you. Because it is, I'm not going to say easy. Making a phone call is never easy for some of us, but it is something that takes a minute or two, and like you said, should make you feel a little bit better after the fact. Should make you feel like you're making a difference because you are. That's democracy. Democracy is the population, getting involved, being a part of it, being active in it, and I think that's what we've missed for so long. For so long, I think we've gone, okay, the government's going to do what the government does. It's fine. They don't interfere, right? Yada yada. When in reality, it should be us as a whole making the decision, and so we need people out there telling the politicians, hate to say it, that's who matters right now, telling them this isn't okay. Sharing stories that they've read or heard, right? Sharing how it makes them feel and sharing that they're not going to vote for that anymore. I'm a big proponent of voting with your wallet. I'm just, you can cut this if you want, but I had to chuckle today. I saw that Target came out there promoting their Black History Month. Well, that's cute. That's really adorable because Target is the same company that the day of the election rewound all their DEI and recently have been more than okay with having ICE use their parking lots, stop into their stores, and all that other stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and say I have not stepped foot in one of those stores since the day of the election. I sold my shares the next day. Both of those things have been totally fine. Haven't needed to go. Totally.
I've also not been to Target or bought anything from Target in this time. Yeah.
But look it up. I know I shared some on my stories. I don't think you could see them anymore. I'll try and find it. Maybe I could, share it out again. You can let me know when this is going up. But those are things that matter. When if half the people stop shopping somewhere, it's going to affect their bottom line, and they're going to have to reconsider how they do business and how they talk about what they care about in the community. And when you have corporations that are politically able to act as individuals, it matters. It matters a lot.
It really matters. I totally agree. Voting with your wallet and also voting
Hmm.
in general.
All of it.
And donating, that's something,
Yeah.
that's a really good point because, I mean, we don't all have the means to do that, but if you do, even if you're donating $1, $5, whatever it is, it makes a difference. And I will put those links for those organizations in the description box as well, so that, and I'm going to go and donate because I totally forgot that you've mentioned those links on Instagram, and I just like totally forgot.
Well, I should share it
So.
out again too. So this is a good reminder for me. See, and I'm not going to beat myself up. I haven't had the time, but I'm going to do it today. I will share those out again. And especially again, not to say anything about Neighborhood House because the good they do is, uncomparable, but the Dios Habla Hoy, I believe I have that name correct, of the church in Minneapolis. They're right in Minneapolis. And they're on the ground with everybody every day. You know what I mean? And I think they're the one helping with the rent because people can't go to work. They're arresting people at work. I shouldn't say arresting, kidnapping, frankly, taking people while they're at work. And so if they were taking people that look like me and sounded like me at work, guess where I'm not going? And
Yeah.
look what happens. So the donation part of it right now is huge, I'm gonna add too. I think I noticed myself doing it right when there was a slight change in rhetoric for a day or two. I think we all heard that, and I relaxed a bit, right? And that's the wrong thing to do because nothing is stopped. If anything, things got more targeted the next day. We have to keep up the pressure until it stops. Really, truly, until there's an end to it, we have to, take care of ourselves first so that we have the energy, have the ability to keep going because we have to keep going. When people try to break you often, right? And this is the government trying to break us. And it's been amazing to see how much, but donate, get on there, support people, correct people. If you watch this and hear somebody say, oh, but I hear that group is really violent or they commit more crimes. It's like, no, they don't. It's not true, actually. And I forgot what I saw, but there's statistics everywhere. You can find them if you want to find them.
No, I know what you're saying, but it's important to point out because some people are believing rhetoric coming from that side and they don't know that it's not true.
Truth is the most important thing right now. And that's why I'm an advocate for sharing out the videos or when we know the sources where they're from, people on the ground, respected journalists, things like that. Or people who've proven that they're on the ground time and time again. I think it's like Minneapolis 5051. There's a guy from there. There's a bunch of local people on the ground right now too that you can follow because the truth is really hard to parse with as much rhetoric and from both sides. Right now I say that one of the things that was going on because there's neighborhood ICE watches in every neighborhood right now. One of the most important things is having visual evidence of ICE agents and where they are because of even that misinformation, right? We don't want to waste resources if somebody says ICE is here, but it was a guy in camouflage, or they've already moved on somewhere else and people need to be activated in that area to go blow whistles, go videotape what's happening, go find out these people's names. I mean, that's one of the most stark thing is trying to yell out, seeing people trying to yell out and go, "What's your name? Who's your what? Who's your family? Who can we tell that you're literally being taken right now with no information. Everything is based off literally just needing facts and truth right now. So sharing those out, informing yourself of those, not doom scrolling and seeing a bunch of things that could hurt us and other people, especially mentally, and finding facts, finding real things can be helpful because then you actually know what's going on. You can speak intelligently on it, and it gives you an ability to find out how to help.
Right. Like you can feel informed, you can kind of step away. And then I think the taking action part of it really can kind of give you some peace. I mean, it's not, there is no true peace right now, but I do think you can feel like you have a purpose and you've done something to try to help the cause. I mean, I think that's an important part of it, even if it's something small,
Hmm.
even if it's something small. Well, thank you, Lee, so much for coming on. I think this was a really good discussion. And I know we don't normally talk about things in the news and things that are so heavy, but I think it's really crucial right now to talk about these things. And we're all feeling it and thinking about it. So I just wanted to put it out there. And, especially those of us who have bipolar disorder, it can be hard to deal with and hard to kind of know what we can do and maybe when we shouldn't do something. So I think it's good just to just talk about it and, just let you all know that you're not alone and we're feeling it too. So thank you so much for watching this video and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.